Chapter 2 The Blythe Girls Helen, Margie, and Rose by Laura Lee Hope. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2 Problems. The great step had now been taken, the moving was over, and the Blythe girls were fairly set for the great adventure. After much searching and skinning of knuckles, Margie and Helen succeeded in discovering the hiding place of the barrel of dishes, and Margie, seemingly miraculously, drew forth a hammer and tack puller from one of the boxes. "What do you bet they are all broken?" said the latter cheerfully. "I mean the dishes, not my knuckles, although there's an even chance either way," she added ruefully. "You poor dear. Let me take a hand now. There! And you always said I never had any strength." The cover was off, and the dishes that had been packed with such loving care were disclosed. Most of the china had been decorated by their mother, and was priceless to them in consequence. Not one piece was broken, which seemed to them an omen of good luck. Carefully they transported it to the little cubbyhole of a kitchen behind the dark and dingy dining room. They resolutely kept up a cheerful front, while Margie hastily scrubbed down the shelves of an inconvenient cupboard, and Helen washed and wiped the precious china till it gleamed. When the shelves of the closet were freshly lined with white paper and the dishes safely bestowed upon them, the girls felt somehow better and more cheerful. "We have something that looks a little bit more like home anyway," said Margie. "Now for the table linen. Have you any idea where it was packed, Nell?" Helen admitted that she had not the slightest idea, and together they went in search of it. They found it presently and proceeded to set the table. When it was all done, they sat down for a moment to take breath and looked at each other. "The kitty isn't back yet," said Helen, voicing the thought of them both. "Now, where do you suppose she can be?" A door slammed noisily at the end of the hall, and Rose herself answered the question. She came into the room flushed and bright-eyed to meet a reproach from Helen. "You must try not to slam doors like that, Rose," she said. "We are not in a house all by ourselves now, you know, and the other tenants might object if we made too much noise." "Sort of like being in jail, isn't it?" queried Rose, with a grin that tried to be cheerful but deceived no one. "All right, I'll try to remember, Nell. Now look here and see what I brought you. Isn't this ever so much better than stodgy old roast pork?" She undid the parcel in her hands and proudly displayed its contents. The girls watched with dismay as she extracted 3 large pickles, some indigestible looking celery salad, a chunk of highly seasoned meatloaf, and some of the greasiest doughnuts it had ever been their bad fortune to look upon. Even Margie was disgusted this time, and slapped on a hat over her disordered hair to go out and get some "regular food." "Well, of all the old fogies!" exclaimed Rose, as the door closed after her disgruntled sister. "What's the matter with this dinner, I'd like to know? It's good and nourishing, isn't it?" "Yes, and indigestible," said Helen wearily. "I do wish you would use a little more judgment, Kitty." "And I do wish you would stop calling me Kitty," said Rose, suddenly vehement. "It sounds so silly, especially since I'm almost grown up." A few minutes later Margie arrived with some lamb chops and peas, and it was not long before a pleasant aroma was wafting its fragrance through the dingy and disorderly rooms. They ate, too. Oh, how they ate, with the ravenous appetites of young folks who have gone without sustenance for an unusually long period. After they had eaten, they cleared up the dishes with a little more enthusiasm and set to work getting the beds ready for the night. This was not such an easy task, since both the big double bed and the cot, which was to accommodate Rose, were leaning against the wall in the living room, with a small army of bundles and boxes piled against them. When the big bed had finally been set up in the larger of the 2 cubbyholes that must answer for bedrooms, the mattress unearthed and dragged into its proper resting place upon the springs, the bedding found and sorted, the girls were about ready to drop with fatigue. "And we still have that old cot to move!" cried Rose, as she flung herself upon the bed, kicked off one shoe, and rubbed a painful instep. "To tell the truth, I'd rather hang up on a peg all night than budge again." "Poor kitty," said Helen, looking pityingly at the bundle of discontent curled up on the foot of the bed. "You don't have to budge. Just get in your nightie and we'll have the cot ready in a jiffy." "You are just spoiling that girl, Nell," said Margie in a low tone, as she and Helen went back for the cot. "You shouldn't wait on her like that. She could be getting out the bed linen. We none of us feel as fresh as the morning, you know." At last everything was in readiness. The doors and windows were all locked, the lights all out, and nothing remained but to cuddle into bed and sleep. But they did not sleep. Over fatigue, the strangeness of their surroundings, anxiety about their future, all combined to keep them wakeful and restless during the greater part of the night. It was hot, too, breathlessly hot and stuffy in their little cubby holes where the only air that entered their windows was through an open court. Somebody in the apartment below them was having a late party, playing jazz upon a player piano whose syncopated rhythm jarred unbearably upon their taut nerves. It was horrible, a nightmare of sights and sounds and smells that assailed their senses and made them long achingly for the rambling old homestead in Riverdale, where there was nothing to break the stillness but the song of crickets and the croaking of frogs in the pool behind the house, where a soft, flower-scented breeze made bearable even the hottest nights. It was nearly dawn before any of them fell asleep, and the sun was high in the heavens before they opened heavy eyes upon the problems of a new day. "Isn't the noise awful?" asked Margie, as she sat upon the edge of the bed, swinging a listless foot. "I feel as though I have had to shout to make you hear it all." Helen brushed her hair thoughtfully and nodded. "It wouldn't be so bad if we were not on a streetcar line." "And in that case we would have had to pay just twice as much for this flat as we are doing," said Margie. Then she added with a humorous twist of her mouth, "And if you can tell me how on earth that could be managed, I'll be very proud of you, Helen Blythe." "And I," said Helen, with a wry smile at her reflection in the mirror, "would be very proud of myself." End of chapter 2.